Imagine a room that hasn't seen sunlight in 800 years. 53 miles of shelving, stretching into a darkness that the world was never meant to witness. This isn't just an archive, it is the hard drive of human history, and most of it is encrypted. Tonight we aren't just looking at the Vatican, we're looking through the keyhole. Vatican City, the smallest country on earth, and the keeper of its longest memory. But beneath the gold of St. Peter's and the marble of the museums, there is a silence so heavy it feels physical. 12 centuries of human history, buried where the sun never reaches. To enter the archive, you cannot simply walk in. You need a letter of recommendation from a recognized institution, an interview conducted entirely in Italian, and approval that can take months. Most people are turned away. Most people never try. What most people don't know is that the archive doesn't just sit above ground. Much of it is stored deep underground, in a 2-story fireproof reinforced concrete bunker, built specifically to survive whatever the world throws at it. Wars, floods, time itself. It feels cold here. The air is still. It's the sound of 12 centuries of secrets, holding their breath. 85 kilometers of shelving. If you walked every shelf end to end, it would take you days. 35,000 volumes of catalog alone. The oldest documents dating back to the 8th century. But even the scholars who are granted access are never allowed to wander. They work under the cold, unblinking eyes of cameras. They cannot touch. They cannot photograph. And everything dated after 1958 remains completely classified. Beyond that date, history becomes a black hole. What has been revealed is extraordinary enough. Inside these walls are documents that didn't just record history, they created it. In 1633, the Vatican put a man on trial for telling the truth. Galileo Galilei had dared to say that the earth moved around the sun. The church called it heresy. The handwritten transcript of his trial, every word spoken, sits in this archive. You can see where the ink pressed into the page as they condemned him to a life of silence. The church wanted his ideas dead, but they kept the evidence alive. 1586, a queen wrote a letter to the Pope. She was in prison. She was going to be executed. Mary, Queen of Scots, wrote to Pope Sixtus V, pleading with him to save her. He never replied, but her letter is still here. The ink hasn't faded, even if the hope did 400 years ago. Then there are the Templars. Friday, the 13th of October, 1307. In a single night, the most powerful military order in history was destroyed, tortured into confession, burned alive. The minutes of their trials are here, including the Chinon Parchment, which reveals the Pope privately absolved the Templars before publicly condemning them to death. The truth didn't set them free, it was filed away, right here. But here is where it gets interesting. Everything you just saw is what they chose to show us. The classified section contains the private records of every pope since Pius XII, their personal correspondence, their knowledge of world events. That never became public. What did the Vatican know? And when did they know it? Those answers are in those rooms, and we are not allowed in. There are sections of this archive that have not been opened in decades, not because they're empty, but because someone decided the world is not ready to read them. We leave now, back through the gates, back into a world that doesn't know what is sitting beneath their feet. 85 kilometers of human history, some of it revealed, most of it still waiting. They renamed it in 2019. They removed the word secret. They said it was never really secret, just private. But if the archives are no longer secret, why are the locks still turning? Make of that what you will. 85 kilometers of secrets, 12 centuries of history. Only 75 years old documents can be accessed. Everything after 1958 remains locked. The Vatican has never explained why. Some doors exist for a reason. This was one of them. Nexel Verse, explore what history forgot.